10. Poison Ivy tortures the Riddler. In a massive misstep, the Riddler once manipulated Poison Ivy for his own schemes. After using her, he foolishly returned to her jungle, either seeking forgiveness or help. But forgiveness wasn't on Ivy's mind. Instead, she attacked, telling him this was where he'd die. She physically beat him down, but worse than the bruises were the blows to his ego. Ivy taunted him, saying that no one respected him and that he wasn't worthy to stand alongside Gotham's most notorious villains. Her words crushed the Riddler's spirit so completely that he begged her to kill him and end his misery. But Ivy, satisfied with the psychological damage she'd inflicted, simply walked away, leaving him to wallow in his own defeat. 9. Joker shoots Barbara. Barbara Gordon, a key member of the Bat family and the daughter of Commissioner Jim Gordon, experienced the darkest side of her crime-fighting life when the Joker shot her in the spine. As Batgirl, she dedicated her life to protecting Gotham, only to have that future ripped away in a single cruel moment. What made the attack even more devastating was the fact that she wasn't the Joker's main target. In The Killing Joke, the Joker's twisted goal was to prove that anyone could be driven mad after just one bad day. His primary target was Jim Gordon. Barbara was merely collateral damage in his attempt to push her father to the brink of insanity. To the Joker, Jim was just another pawn in his relentless war against Batman, and Barbara's suffering was nothing more than a side effect of his sadistic game. 8. The Riddler kills his daughter. The Riddler, a narcissistic maniac with a brilliant yet twisted mind, stands as one of Batman's most cunning and dangerous foes. At a time when nearly every villain seemed to have a child, the Riddler introduced his own, Enigma, a mysterious daughter whose backstory remains largely unclear. But when two egotistical villains join forces, chaos is inevitable. Enigma, frustrated with her father's diminishing reputation, mocked his intelligence, calling him a washed-up joke. Enraged by the insult, the Riddler snapped back, asking her chillingly, "What's purple and green and bleeds profusely?" Enigma's terrified scream followed, and after that, she disappeared from the pages of DC Comics. 7. Professor Pig victims. Professor Pig is one of the most disturbing villains in Gotham's Rogues Gallery, blending the grotesque with the unhinged in ways that are hard to forget. Pig's obsession with perfection isn't about beauty or symmetry. No, his version of perfection involves mind-warping drugs, grisly neurosurgery, and the horrifying practice of genital mutilation. To top it all off, he forces his victims into grotesque, doll-like beings by attaching eerie masks to their faces, turning them into his army of Dollatrons. His reign of terror finally comes to an end when he's captured and, in a fittingly brutal conclusion, is crucified for his monstrous crimes. A chilling fate for one of Gotham's most deranged minds. 6. Ra's al Ghul bioweapon. Ra's al Ghul, in his relentless pursuit of saving the world, unleashed one of his most devastating schemes on Gotham City. This time, his plan went far beyond the usual. He successfully released a deadly disease across the city. Despite Batman and his allies' best efforts to stop the spread, they couldn't save everyone. Thousands perished as Gotham fell victim to the epidemic, leaving the city in ruins. The devastation didn't end there. The aftermath of the disease left Gotham in such a fragile state that when a massive earthquake struck shortly afterward, the city was all but obliterated. Gotham became a wasteland, a no-man's land, abandoned by the government and left to its own chaos. It was Ra's al Ghul's most terrifying success, proving just how close his vision of world destruction could come to reality. 5. The most bizarre Batman villain. Cornelius Stirk might almost seem like someone to feel sorry for if he wasn't so terrifying. He suffers from a mental illness that makes him believe he needs to eat human hearts to survive. To make it worse, he's convinced the hearts are best when the person is scared because fear releases a hormone called norepinephrine. In the Shadow Falls storyline, Stirk shows just how dangerous he can be. He has the ability to make people see him as someone they know, which lets him get close to his victims. By the time they realize who he really is, it's already too late. 4. Joker brutally skinned a henchman. After being locked away in Arkham Asylum for a long time, the Joker returned to Gotham and quickly reclaimed his title as the Clown Prince of Crime. Upon his release, he found out that one of his old henchmen, Monty, had been making a name for himself while the Joker was gone. Normally, the Joker might have let this slide, but when he discovered that Monty had hired Harley Quinn to work at his strip club, things took a darker turn. The Joker's jealousy and fury reached a peak, leading to one of the most gruesome moments in his criminal career. He brutally skinned Monty alive, but he didn't stop there. In a twisted final act of revenge, the Joker shoved Monty out onto the stage of his own club, forcing him to experience what it's like to be seen as nothing more than a piece of meat. The scene was horrifying and completely shocking, even for the Joker's standards. 3. Bane breaks Batman's spine. Most people remember Bane as the guy who broke Batman's back, but there's so much more to that story. Bane wasn't just some overpowered brute. He was calculating and patient. Before even confronting Batman, he orchestrated a massive prison break, flooding Gotham's streets with criminals. This forced Batman and his allies to spend night after night rounding up the escapees, exhausting them in the process. Bane studied Batman from afar, learning his habits, strengths, and weaknesses. He didn't rush into the fight. He waited for the perfect moment when Batman was physically and mentally drained. Then, when Batman was at his weakest, Bane made his move. He confronted the Dark Knight, and in one of the most iconic moments in comic history, lifted him up and broke his back over his knee, leaving Batman utterly defeated. 2. Hush almost killed Catwoman. As a child, Hush was Tommy Elliot, a rich kid and one of Bruce Wayne's best friends. While they lived in luxury, Tommy's family life was a nightmare. He hated his abusive dad and his emotionally distant mom. In a twisted move, he cut the brake lines of their car, causing a crash that killed them both. This act of desperation marked the beginning of his dark journey toward becoming a villain. As he grew up, Hush became a major player in some of Batman's most intense stories, especially in Heart of Hush. In this tale, he came back to get revenge on Batman after figuring out his secret identity. To really hurt Batman, Hush went after Catwoman, cutting out her heart and leaving her fighting for her life. This horrific act drove Batman into deep despair, showing just how far Hush would go to destroy his former friend. 1. Jason Todd is killed by Joker. The Joker brutally murdered Jason Todd, beating him to death with a crowbar in a horrific display of violence. Batman was left to find the bloody, mangled body of his young protege amid the wreckage of a collapsed building, a sight that haunted him for years. This shocking act of cruelty was a defining moment in the Batman saga, showcasing the Joker's utter ruthlessness. Although Todd would eventually return to life, this tragedy marked a turning point in Batman's life, deepening his sense of guilt and loss. For a long time, it stood out as one of the Joker's most merciless acts in DC history, illustrating the lengths to which the Clown Prince of Crime would go to inflict pain on his greatest enemy. And that's the video, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to watch more videos that will appear on the screen right now. See you later.